It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right? My God. Look, I hope you take whatever time you need to go through all of these projects penny by penny.
Senator John Kennedy doesn't hold back as he grills the Biden administration's energy secretary over an eye-popping $93 billion loan spree allegedly pushed through in just 76 days before President Biden left office. How much taxpayer money was handed out with no business plan or financials? You won't believe the answers. Watch this explosive Senate hearing breakdown that reveals potential mismanagement, boondoggles, and the fight to hold officials accountable. Kennedy begins by zeroing in on a critical time frame, the final 76 days before the Trump administration took full control. In those 11 weeks, the Department of Energy's Loan Programs Office issued a stunning $93 billion in loans and commitments. That's more than double what was handed out in the previous 15 years combined. Let's dive in.
The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
And during that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the Loan Program Office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years. So,
how do you vet and do due diligence on a loan in 76 days? One loan, much less $93 billion. How do you do it?
I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases. As I mentioned, I'm told I'm holding back clearly in place stuff. There is lots of funds that have gone out the door and commitments that were made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their own financial solvency or how this project
So
can
you're
actually
telling
work.
me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period, before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan?
Correct.
No financials?
Correct. A number of those were before the 76-day period as well. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how American taxpayer money has been handled. I'm sorry everyone's upset that we're taking some time to do it, but what we've seen and what the record shows
I'm
is
not
just
upset. Could it be that a lot of people say you haven't returned your calls? Could it be that you and your colleagues have returned the calls, but the people calling just didn't like the answer? Could that be a possibility?
I'm not aware of that. You know, I give my cell phone number to any senator that wants
know you
it,
do.
and I return my calls.
I mean, has your department gone dark? Somebody said your department's gone dark. Is it dark over there?
It doesn't look dark behind me.
I don't see any of you sitting on your hands. Somebody made that charge. I see everybody's hands. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Secretary. Does anybody ever come to the Department of Energy to get some of this free money and lie to you?
I have not experienced that, but I think it's a reasonable assumption that has happened.
Does anybody ever come to you Or is it conceivable that some of these folks that heard about this free money came to you with a half-baked idea?
I think it's very conceivable. In fact, I've seen such plans that were half-baked would be charitable.
That didn't have a business plan, right?
Correct. A promise to develop one, to find a location.
Just give me the money and I'll develop the plan later.
Correct.
And now you're going back through, not money that's already been contracted, but you're going back through and checking each one of these loans and these grants to make sure there was no stealing, aren't you?
We are.
And you make sure there was no incompetence, aren't you? Is that correct?
We're looking at that, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising right now just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department.
And you're going to tell some of these boondoggles no, aren't you?
That's correct.
And they're going to be upset, aren't they?
That's correct.
And they ought to be upset, shouldn't they?
I don't think they should be upset. I think they should be ashamed.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God. Look, I hope you take whatever time you need to go through all of these projects penny by penny. I mean, I've heard this testimony today. Well, it'll cost jobs in my state. If somebody steals $50 million and goes and spends the money in their state, that's going to stimulate the economy, isn't it?
Yes, it will.
But that's still stealing, isn't it? And it's still illegal, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, they were spending money at the Department of Energy like it was ditch water.
In a political world where too many dance around the truth, Senator John Kennedy stood firm. He didn't come to play games. He came with facts, questions, and the courage to demand answers. While others might have looked the other way as $93 billion was handed out in the final days of a lame duck administration, Kennedy pulled back the curtain. He exposed the recklessness, the lack of oversight, and the free-for-all mentality that risked turning taxpayer dollars into a political ATM. And he did it all with clarity, conviction, and common sense. In an era when trust in government is crumbling, voices like Kennedy's are essential, not because they shout the loudest, but because they ask the right questions when others won't. He made it clear, no more blank checks, no more shady deals behind closed doors, and no more silence when the American people deserve the truth. Senator Kennedy didn't just confront a secretary, he confronted a system. And in doing so, he reminded Washington and the rest of the country that accountability still matters. That's leadership. That's integrity. And that's exactly what we need more of. In just 76 days, $93 billion vanished into the hands of companies, some credible, many questionable. Senator Kennedy didn't just raise his voice, he raised the alarm. When taxpayer dollars become free handouts for the well-connected, someone has to ask the hard questions. That's exactly what Kennedy did. Let this be a wake-up call. Transparency isn't optional, and accountability is long overdue. If you agree it's time to audit every cent, expose the waste, and stop the nonsense, hit like, drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. This isn't just politics. This is your money, and it's time to take it seriously.